Thank you.
Cool. Cheers, Amy. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Nexer Umbraco 8 End of Life webinar, and why now is the time to start looking at upgrading your site if it's still on Umbraco version 8. So here's what we're going to cover in today's webinar. So we'll start with some introductions of people on the webinar, our side, and I'll give you a little background about who we are at Nexer and what we do. I'll then cover when Umbraco 8 becomes end of life and what that means for you and your site. Rachel will then take you through the benefits of upgrading to the latest versions of Umbraco, and she'll also cover the different upgrade paths and options to upgrading Umbraco. Then Mike from Umbraco will then explain your other option, which is around purchasing extended support for your Umbraco 8 site if upgrading before the end of life date just isn't an option for you. And finally, Mike will give you a little information on Umbraco Cloud as well, and the benefits that can bring. We've then got some time at the end to cover any questions that you might have, so feel free to get those into the Q&A section on the call as well, and we can cover those at the end as well. Cool, so we'll start with some introductions of who we've got on the webinar today. I'll selfishly go first. So I'm Dave Brislane. I'm the head of technology at Nexer Digital. I've been with the company 17 years now, so a fairly long time. My role as head of technology sees me looking after and managing 3 teams that work very closely day to day on new project delivery and also support and maintenance of sites. That's our front end development team, our back end development team, and then we also have a quality assurance team as well that test all of the work that we deliver to our clients as well. So I'll hand over to Rachel, who leads one of those teams.
Hello, I'm Rachel Breeze. I am back-end development team lead at Nexer. I've been with Nexer 11 years. I'm a 5 times Umbraco MVP and also a Microsoft MVP. And I'll hand over to Mike.
Yes, hello, I am Mike Pedersen. I'm the regional director for the UK region at Umbraco. Not as a veteran as the 2 others. I've been with Umbraco for 6 years. And I look forward to talking to you today.
Cheers, Mike. So a little bit about who we are at Nexer. So Nexer Digital are a human-centered research, design and development agency with a very strong focus on digital inclusion and social impact. And we work specifically in the public, private and not-for-profit sectors. Overall, we like to design and develop digital products and services that help people live and work better. And a lot of these products and projects are built using Umbraco, which we've been using for over 14 years now. In that time, we've probably done in excess of about 250 projects and products on the platform. We've been a partner with Umbraco for 13 of those years as well. And we like to proactively contribute back to the platform itself and the wider Umbraco community. And we're very proud that we've got 3 Umbraco most valued persons at the company here at Nexer. So you can see those on the right there. So Rachel, who's on the call, she's a 5 times MVP, like you said. We've got Danny Lancaster, who's our accessibility lead here at Nexer. Again, he's a 5 times MVP. And we've also got Amy, who's on the call as well, who's our head of a new business, who's also an MVP as well. So the MVP awards are awarded by Umbraco themselves at their yearly conference, Code Garden, to people who have contributed really heavily to the Umbraco platform and community in the past 12 months. So yeah, we're really proud of the work that they've done. So the main reason we're all here today, and that's to discuss Umbraco 8's end of life and what that means for you and your site. So on the 24th of February earlier this year, Umbraco 8 entered a security only phase, which essentially means only security issues have been fixed on the version in the past year. No new features have been actively developed for the version. Then in the next few months, so on the 24th of February next year, Umbraco 8 will reach its official end of life at that point in time. So what does that mean for your site if it's still using that version? Firstly, and most importantly, is the risk of security issues, because after Umbraco 8 reaches the end of life phase, it will no longer receive those security fixes that I mentioned it's been getting in the past year. So whilst the software on your site will still function, your site won't go down suddenly, you or we can't guarantee its security anymore. A good example is Umbraco had to release a security advisory and patch yesterday for Umbraco version 8 and above. But after February 2025, you will no longer get those security patches for the platform, which is going to leave your website and customer data at risk, essentially. There's compliant risks in continuing to use the platform if it's unsupported, as this might breach your company's policies regarding end of life software and the use of it. So Cyber Essentials plus certifications and similar, it would be a compliance risk to those. There'll obviously be that lack of new features that I've mentioned. Not upgrading means missing out on new features that are being developed and available in the later versions of Umbraco. From Umbraco version 9 onwards, Umbraco is rewritten to use the latest .NET languages released by Microsoft, which bring considerable performance and sustainability benefits. So again, sticking with version 8, you won't see those benefits that those later versions bring. In addition, more modern versions of Umbraco can run on different operating systems, not just Windows-based ones, which can have a cost benefit from a hosting perspective, and it can also have efficiency benefits from your development teams as well. And finally, as updates to the platform will not be being made, you won't be getting new features. That can lead to frustrations from your content editing team, because essentially the content editing experience that they use day to day remains stagnant and no new features are being introduced to the sites. So I'm going to hand over to Rachel to talk about the benefits of upgrading.
Hi, so Umbraco 13 is the latest long-term support version from Umbraco, and we'll explore what that means in a minute. And it's built on .NET 8. .NET is an open source, free, secure, reliable development platform from Microsoft, so it's well backed. And in .NET 8, they introduced a new code generator that can improve the performance of your apps. And this means developers can easily build applications that can handle higher user loads and concurrent requests. And as part of the re-architecture of .NET, Microsoft reviewed how .NET processed requests, leading to better utilization of hardware resources, which leads to energy savings. Microsoft have implemented efficient memory management in .NET 8 as well, and this reduces the workload, leading to lower CPU usage and energy consumption, and potentially hosting costs. And they've improved the encryption algorithms and secure communication protocols, which means that your application data is protected during transit and at rest. And one of the other things to know is .NET 8 is in long-term support, which means companies that adopt .NET 8 can be confident they'll get updates, security patches and support. This makes it a sustainable choice for enterprise applications where long-term stability is the preference. Sorry, one slide deck, two people. It means, so what this means is Umbraco 13 is better for the planet. It's built on Umbraco 13, built on .NET 8, which has got the out-of-the-box improvements that we talked around previously just about with performance and sustainability. But it's also more sustainable through supporting sustainability through front-end emissions reporting package, which was created specifically for Umbraco 13. It helps editors and developers see and improve the carbon impacts of the website, promoting a more sustainable content as you build the site out. And Umbraco Cloud has a sustainability dashboard which reports on infrastructure emissions. And both of these are great packages to use as the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive comes into force in 2025. And if you're hosting on-prem, as part of the upgrade consider better sustainability by moving hosting, say, to Azure. Azure is going to be carbon negative, have zero waste, and be water positive by 2030, so probably greener than on-prem. And Umbraco Cloud is hosted in Azure, so that also makes it a green choice for hosting. I also want to mention the sustainability team, which is dedicated to improving sustainability, of which our very own Amy Zuber is part of. The team have pulled together guidance on how to build sustainable websites in Umbraco as well. And then as part of a recent upgrade we benchmarked a number of key metrics before and after upgrading between major versions, and the results were really impressive. We reduced the CO2 produced per page by 58%. So an upgrade is definitely something that can make your sites more sustainable. It's also, Umbraco 13 has improved accessibility. And this is really important because the European Accessibility Act comes into effect in 2025. And this piece of legislation mandates that all businesses operating with the European Union, so that's either being based in Europe or selling to Europe, they must ensure that their products and services are accessible to all users. So in Umbraco, the Umbraco 13 back office is much more accessible with better support for keyboard navigation and assistive technology. And this can help everyone become more productive because there's less reliance on a mouse as well. So great for people who have access needs and great for your team overall. Umbraco Forms has had accessibility improvements as well. There's improved support in the back office for building accessible forms, and out of the box, forms are more accessible. If you've got customizations in Umbraco Forms, we can help you improve the accessibility of those. Umbraco 13 is also supported by an accessibility reporter tool that's been developed by the community. And this will help you test your website against the Web Content Accessibility Guidance, Section 508 and best practices. And there's a screenshot of that on the right. And Umbraco has an accessibility guild, of which our very own developer Danny Lancaster is a member of, and this is fed into all Umbraco versions since Umbraco 8. Another benefit of an upgrade is Umbraco is more GDPR compliant. Out of the box, Umbraco 13 supports restricting access to sensitive fields in the member data, meaning only people with permission to see them in the back office can access them. Umbraco Forms has got improved GDPR support. We can define how long data is retained for each form. We can prevent user responses being stored in Umbraco, and we've got experience of posting those responses into Salesforce or Dynamics. And we can also optionally prevent capture of IP addresses. By default, users' IP address is captured in Umbraco Forms. It's important to say that GDPR is more than just the Umbraco back office, and Nexer can work with you to ensure your digital estate is GDPR compliant. There's increased security with an upgrade to Umbraco. There's an ability to integrate access to Umbraco back office with external login providers like Azure Active Directory. So if you've got, say, a Microsoft Office installed within your company or organisation, and you use Azure Active Directory to connect to that, you can use the same instance to connect to Umbraco back office. And this makes user onboarding much easier. You grant them permission in Azure to access Umbraco, and then offboarding is easier because when you revoke their access in Azure Active Directory, they no longer have access to the Umbraco back office. If you use an alternative authentication method, we can also work with yourselves to access the back office via that. Security improvements with the back office as well include concurrent login control. So this means people can't share passwords and credentials. You can only log in on one device at one time. And then on the front end, if you've got a membership site, we can make this more secure using external login providers for front-end users, and also support for two-factor authentication on members, so support with tools like Okta. And then out the box, .NET 8 has improved hashing support for algorithms. This means your passwords are more secure. And Umbraco has the ability to further harden this. For example, you can extend it to test against the Have I Been Pawned site, preventing people using passwords and usernames which have been used in data breaches. And I just wanted to go over some other benefits. So as Dave alluded to earlier, since Umbraco 9, it's possible to run Umbraco on multiple operating systems, not just Microsoft-based ones. The addition of Mac support means members of the team who are developers and prefer the Mac environment no longer have to look for alternative systems to work with Umbraco. But more importantly for clients, the addition of support for Linux means we can explore alternate hosting options for yourselves within the Azure, possibly reducing your hosting costs. The editor experience has been redefined. The grid, which you're probably familiar with in Umbraco 8, is replaced by the block grid, meaning content editors and designers no longer have to think in a grid layout, but can build more flexible and dynamic pages. Block preview has been developed as a community package, allowing content editors to preview and edit block content in situ. This is illustrated in the screenshot on the right, and this can be done without having to click and save and preview. So all editing can be done in situ. And then blocks, the rich text editor, which is allows you to enter text, think a bit like Word, but in a browser. This has been granted support for blocks, meaning that the logic we enter for the block grid can be reused in the blocks and making a more easier and content-rich editing experience. And there's more. So there's no or low-code webhooks. This was introduced in Umbraco 13, and it's a feature that allows editors to integrate with external systems without needing code. There's a content delivery API now, which allows websites to be written as headless sites. There's improved Azure Front Door CDN support through a community package. So a CDN is a content delivery network. This allows you to improve response times, and the package allows you to see the refreshes a lot quicker. And there's a content version cleanup has improved in there as well. If you're used to older versions of Umbraco, they've probably seen them become slow because of a lot of historical data. Umbraco 13 has introduced the content version cleanup, which means we can automatically tidy up older versions and keep Umbraco running performantly. So if a quick look at the upgrade paths, you heard me mention long-term support. This is where the site is, the version of Umbraco is upgraded every second year, and it is preferred by IT directors because it offers more stability in the system. However, there's also standard tone support, which allows you to access the latest features built by Umbraco, and they are released twice a year. Or there's a third option for upgrading, which is where we would upgrade you to long-term support, and then you would keep an eye on standard term support and potentially migrate to that when it's released. So in Umbraco 15, for example, there's some improved memory management coming. So we might look to move to that as part of an upgrade strategy. At Nexer, we have a well-documented upgrade path to help smooth the migration from 8 to 13 or 8 to 14. But in essence, the upgrade path both relates to content and code upgrade. This is because how content is stored has changed between Umbraco 8 and Umbraco 13. So the upgrade path migrates all content from that version to the Umbraco 13. Once the content has been upgraded, the code has to be rewritten. This is due to changes in implementation from both Microsoft and Umbraco. And just a quick note on Umbraco 14. This is in standard term support until November and includes a back office rewrite. In November, Umbraco 15 is released into standard term support. This is on .NET 9, has a new rich text property editor, improved support for integrations, and even more performance enhancements. And very quick look at what else you might want to consider. You might want to take a look at your user experience. It could be a good time to redesign your website, making sure it's as user-centered as possible and that it's also serving your business needs. We could look to introduce new functionality. As we looked at, the grid editor offers much more flexibility and options to the content editor, and we can work with you to create a pattern library to keep your brand consistent across digital channels. We'd also recommend a content review, as it's a good opportunity to perform both a content audit on the site and test it with users and use analytics to highlight your most engaging content. We'll work with you on an accessibility audit because next year the European Accessibility Act will mandate that your website is accessible. And we can also look at hosting with yourselves, making sure it's as sustainable and as secure as it could be. And over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Rachel. And I want to say, first of all, I want to strongly emphasize our recommendation of always upgrading to the latest version. There was a ton of reasons why now. I think Dave mentioned new features, more performance. What we've seen in the last 10, 15 years is that being on the latest technology will always bring you a better performance. It will always bring you some newer tools, but also for other reasons, like having a better performing site means it's quicker for your users, but it's also better for the resources they use. It uses less resources, so it's better for the environment, and ultimately using less resources to power a site or an application also means that you might actually save some money by upgrading. Now, we also know that it's not always easy to manage deadlines, and there's a lot of different factors coming into place. So what we do not want you to is to be at risk at any time. So we want to give you an extra option to extend the security phase, which is ending in February 24th next year. So we will be offering an extended support option for Umbraco 8. This is a security phase only, and this is for us to offer an option for the ones where you might end in a situation where you're not going to be able to rebuild your site in a newer version before that date. So the extended support option is security patches, potential security patches being provided to the specific customers that opts in for this. It's offered by our partners, and it's available from now on. The actual package is a 6 or 12-month package covering the first half of 2025 or the full year of 2025. And it comes with as a bundle, which is the security offering together with support, but also with a platform as a service offering called Umbraco Cloud, which gives you the ability, or your Nexer, the ability to use that as the environment to set up potential new upgrade. So instead of you having to set up the databases, the hosting and everything for the period where you are gonna building your new Umbraco version, you have that as part of the package. Next slide, Dave. And a few words on Umbraco Cloud, which is the platform as a service that we're offering with a standard package in this extended support period. One of the reasons for doing that is because it comes with the updated upgrade or automated upgrades. So as it is a software as a service, you would have patches, you would have minors, and you have major changes. The patches are automatically applied. This means that if there is a security incident or a vulnerability, we will make a patch and we will roll this out automatically to all our Umbraco Cloud sites. If you're not on cloud, this is a manual process that you or your partner will need to undertake to apply the patch. So the automation means that it's much more secure and it's automated. You also get a full platform where you got all the tools in order to manage your site. So it's easier for the DevOps part. You get all the databases, you get everything in one tool. But for the benefits of the security and for this, it's primarily the automation of the versioning and the upgrades. And questions?
Thank you. Yeah, questions. Thank you so much to all of our speakers. It was really, really informative to hear a bit more about what's involved. And yeah, we'd love to open the floor up to our attendees. If you have any questions, any thoughts, any comments, yeah, we can use this section of the webinar for a bit of conversation, a bit of Q&A. And one is coming already, so I'll read that one out. And it's just around the typical timeframes for an upgrade. So I know we've mentioned that February's end of life, but in terms of next steps from there, how long are we sort of looking? I guess maybe one for Rachel or Dave.
The $1 million question, Amy.
Yeah.
Or I hope it's $1 million question if the site's complex enough. But I guess it comes down to that, basically. How big and complex the site is, what integrations with other third-party systems does it have, what API layers does it have built on top of Umbraco, and similar. That said, we've been able to do Umbraco upgrades from version 7 to 10 and 8 to 13 with clients and sites that we don't support or have prior knowledge of, and we've been able to do those in 3 months. Essentially. So again, it comes back to how much prior knowledge we have around the site as well. And then the upgrade process post Umbraco 9. So once you're on Umbraco 13, and if you want to go to 14 and 15, that upgrade process is a hell of a lot more easier to do these days. The reason 8 and above is a bit more different comes back to that point that Rachel made around the content and database schema changes that make that upgrade slightly complex. But for future versions, it's a lot more easier.
I think it's you could add also, Dave, that the predictability in the future updates is also a lot better, because since 2 years ago, from 8 to 9, we adopted the release cadence of Microsoft, meaning that we are following the .NET release cadence with a new version every 6 months. But it also means that in the differences in between the different versions is a lot less smaller, and you won't see the as we have had in the past with 7 and 8, where you have a lot of fundamental changes. And the 7 from 8 was a very big one. It was more a migration than an upgrade. Now we see that this is much smaller incremental steps to take, and the cost of going from even from the LTS versions from 13 to 17, for example, is a lot less than it used to be in Umbraco.
Also, just to add to that as well, Umbraco are really great at publicising the roadmap of upcoming features. I can't remember the URL off the top of my head, but it's out there. So that enables us as support and maintenance of the sites to do that horizon scanning essentially and know what's coming to the platform in order to be able to recommend what the next steps look like for your site from an upgrade perspective, and whether there's features coming in 15 or 16 that are going to be of real benefit to your site. So we would propose on getting onto those STS versions.
And I can only add that from our perspective, this is why we love to work with partners like Nexer that are greatly engaged in the community, because what we also do is we release candidates prior to the official release, where the especially engaged community members will feed back before it's finally released and can test out the newer versions before that. So it's also a big benefit of having a partner that is highly engaged with us.
Thank you. That's a really, really comprehensive answer to that question. And we've had a few more come in just in the Q&A section, which is great to see. Please keep them coming. Just related to what you were just saying there, Dave and Mike, around the long-term and the short-term options that we have. A question has come in and it says, if you were to build us a new site starting in January, would it be on 13 or 14? And if it was on 13, when would we be then looking to move to 14? And how would we handle that future upgrade path? Yeah, it's a really good question.
So we would normally recommend long-term support. So we would normally recommend 13, but we would have an assessment piece with yourself to understand the exact requirements and then to confirm the exact version number.
Yeah, so like an example of those requirements, the Umbraco 14 came with the user interface completely redeveloped in 14, which makes extending the actual content editing environment a hell of a lot easier. So if there's any specific requirements around building, custom dashboards or similar into the site, if you want to report on specific data analytics or similar directly from the CMS, then it enables us as developers to be able to develop those sorts of dashboards into the editing environment a lot easier. So if there was a requirement around that, then we would probably look at building it in Umbraco 14, so we've got that head start basically.
I think it's also it is across the market, also globally. It is the most common approach is to look at the long-term supported version as a first priority, but look at the short or the standard term versions and see if there's features or elements that is helping you in terms of your requirements for the site. So most will probably take the more stable and more secure route, which is going from a long-term supported version and jumping to the next one, unless there is performance benefits, user benefits, or feature benefits in any of the standard term versions that makes it. But once you make that choice of going to 14, you have also committed to upgrading to 15 and 16 and 17. So you would use that mixed strategy of saying, okay, unless you go for the standard term if there is a feature or something in the requirements that makes it relevant.
Great, thank you. Another one which is sort of related to this upgrade path of, if we're going from 8 to 13 or 14, how would that affect the current site that's currently public facing? Would we be looking at any performance issues whilst that migration is happening? Would there be any downtime associated with that whilst those updates are being made?
So we would assess the site when it comes in, look at what packages you use, what customizations you've got, and then we would ask for a copy of the database and the code at the start of the migration, and then work with yourselves to ensure that the code is always, as we upgrade, to make sure that we have no additional functionality that you add in Umbraco 8 is missed as we upgrade to 14. When we do testing on the site with internally, and then we release it to yourselves for user testing. At the point we release it to yourselves for testing, we would ask for another copy of the database, and at that point we'd be able to advise on any downtime and how long that would be. Downtime very much depends on what content's being migrated and how large the site is, but downtime is kept to a minimum, and we have done upgrades in about half a day at times. But we work with yourselves to ensure that it's not done at a time when you're running campaigns or impacts anything like that. Dave, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add?
No, just on, I guess on the downtime front, and I'll make Rachel blush slightly here, but Rachel's been working on an extremely large upgrade and migration recently, from 8 to 13, or 7 to 13, was it, Rachel? Actually,
it was 7 to 13, yes. And we, the client praised us in the fact that there was no downtime in the actual transfer, because it needs a new domain, not a new domain, sorry, a new hosting environment. There was no actual downtime in moving from the old, where it's pointed to in the old V7 site, into the new V13 site. And we took that site from being on-prem to being in Azure, and there was no downtime on the website whilst we did that.
Great, thank you. And happy to share any and a bit more detail around some of those case studies that we have. We can always provide those after this webinar. Sorry, I got another question here. It's just around, in your experience, what are the most common complexities that we find as part of the upgrade and migration process, and how can we help to mitigate those issues?
So some of we say so at the same time, don't we, Rachel? So some of the ones that we witnessed on a recent one was a site that was developed and maintained by a previous agency that then was supported and maintained by an internal development team. So again, it was a very large and complex site that had, I think it had over 150 templates in it, partial views, and quite poorly written code that we had to onboard and then improve as part of that upgrade and migration process. So yeah, those are the sorts of things that tend to make things more complex when you've got a lot of code under the hood, just because there are breaking changes as part of the upgrade process that we need to rewrite that code to keep it working.
That site also had 96 custom data types within it that needed to be migrated to Umbraco 13, so that was very complex. We also have to analyse any packages that are used. Some packages that are used in Umbraco 8 have either been pulled into Umbraco core because they're so good, or are no longer supported. So we have to assess the packages that are used, and part of the migration process is around that. And we also have to assess the integrations, like Dave said earlier, making sure that they stay, they're fit for purpose before we do the migration, and also ensure they continue to work after the migration. Don't know if there's anything, Dave, Mike, you want to add to that?
Rachel?
Cool. I don't know if we have any more questions from our attendees today, but if you do, then feel free to pop them in the Q&A chat. But additionally, if you have any questions after this webinar and you'd like to contact us, then we're really happy to carry on the conversation there. We've just popped on some of our details on the screen there, so please do feel free to reach out with any questions, thoughts that you do have, and we'd be really happy to continue the conversation. But for now, unless there's any more questions or thoughts that you'd like to discuss, maybe we'll call it there. And thank you very much for your time. It's been great to have you along today, and yeah, hope to hear from you very soon. Thank you to our attendees and our speakers as well. You've been great.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks everyone. Yes,
Bye bye.